Welcome to the Refine and Shine, the podcast dedicated to mastering the art of continuous improvement and optimizing every aspect of your life. I'm Angelina Rivera, your host, and together we'll uncover the secrets to refining our lives, our habits, and our processes to unlock our inner brilliance. Join us on Refine and Shine, where we'll delve deep into achieving more in life without the burnout and without all the stress. This podcast is your platform for a more fulfilling life through continuous improvement and personal growth. In each episode, I and a diverse array of guests discuss practical strategies for up-leveling every aspect of your life. From developing good habits and organizing your space to refining your mindset and personal goals, we're going to explore it all. Our guests share personal stories about the systems they've developed or systems they've used and the tweaks they've made in their lives when refinement was needed, allowing them to truly shine. Listen to Refine and Shine to learn how you can implement continuous improvement techniques in your daily routine, develop and maintain healthy habits that lead to success and satisfaction, organize your life to reduce the stress and increase your productivity, foster a growth mindset that propels you to new heights. My mission is to inspire you to take bold action, make positive changes, and become the best version of yourself. Whether you're aiming to elevate your career, nurture meaningful relationships, or enhance your overall well-being, Refine and Shine is your guiding light. With over 25 years of experience in continuous improvement, I help businesses streamline their processes, establish efficient work areas, and implement standard work protocols. I have trained over 600 individuals and teams in process improvement, optimizing workflows, and enhancing overall operational efficiency. Tune in every week as we embark on an enlightening journey, exploring paths to refinement and illuminating the way to shine in every area of our lives. Subscribe now and join us on this journey to polish your life and let your best self shine through. Thank you for joining us on Refine and Shine. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Refine and Shine podcast. I am super excited for my guest today because I think she is going to give us so much information that we may not even know about, and it's just another way of looking at things. And so my guest today is Eileen Kopsaftis. I wanted to make sure I said her name right. I hope I did. She has a BS, she's a BS, a PT, a FAFS, a CMI, and an NE. So we'll ask her what all of those mean. But she is the founder of Have Lifelong Wellbeing. She is an eclectically trained physical therapist, a nutrition educator, and best-selling author of 2 books, Pain Culprits and Aging Culprits. Her passion is to teach facts about pain, movement, and aging that are mostly unknown so people can age without decline and move without pain. And I was just sharing with her before I got on the air about some stuff that I'm going through with my parents. And so I'm super excited to hear what she has to say because I think knowledge is power. So thank you, Eileen, for being here today.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me. And thank you for having this show so that people can learn stuff. It's great.
Oh, you're welcome. What I'm super excited about is that you have so many initials after your name. And so can you kind of walk us through what all the things that you are and kind of how you got into this? Because it's such a gift to get into focusing on pain. And I know, I just want to know how your journey began to focus on this particular area and how you got all the things you got today.
Yeah. So, well, I'll try to keep it short because it could be a really long story. But the letters, I always joke, especially if I'm asked when I'm speaking at a conference, when they ask me, do you realize it all starts with BS? So it's kind of, a funny joke. But I put BS there, Bachelor of Science, because the physical therapy profession has progressed to a master's and then to a doctorate. So I want people to realize I'm a dinosaur. It was not a doctorate when I graduated. And it doesn't mean that I know less. It just means that I didn't spend 7 years going to school and spending 2 years in research to get a doctorate. I think that there's this beautiful balance of the fact that I've been doing this over 30 years and I've worked with so many different populations and different environments, from nursing home to home care to orthopedic outpatient to pediatric to teenage sports to, the list goes on. So, as I told you before we started, I don't think I know it all, but I feel like I've seen it all. And so I think that bears a lot of fruit. I've also taken tons of coursework after I graduated, which is what all those other initials are for. I could have that go on and on, but I think that's enough, what I put there. And the FAFS, that's a fellowship in applied functional science, which I earned through the Gray Institute. And the Gray Institute has been teaching movement professionals, healthcare professionals for, oh my gosh, almost 50 years. And they are renowned for their understanding of authentic human movement and how everything's connected to everything else. And it's because of them that I can help somebody's neck pain by restoring ankle function, or help somebody's low back pain by restoring trunk function or hip function. The knee, it's usually the hip or the ankle because the knee's stuck in the middle with no place to go. And so, in my YouTube channel, I've got tons of videos that explain the connection, how everything's connected to everything else. And it's why I wrote my book, Pain Culprits, because so many people are beating up the victim. They have shoulder pain, and so they're only treating the shoulder, and they're completely unaware of the fact that it's probably not their shoulder. It could be their hip, it could be their trunk, it could even be their ankle. I worked with a football quarterback, 22 years old, who had he couldn't complete his practice because of shoulder pain, and he came to me with a diagnosis of shoulder tendonitis. And when I assessed him, his shoulder was fine. I mean, he was rock solid muscle from head to toe, and I could have hung on his shoulder. There was no limitation in that shoulder. And because I don't do conventional stuff, I'm like, okay, show me how you throw a football. And when I saw how unstable his ankle was, I asked him, how often do you injure that? And he said he rolls out on that ankle all the time during practice and has to walk off the pain. Now, the other topic is, why would his coach and his trainer allow him to play with such an unstable ankle? But we won't get off on a tangent. And so we spent maybe 3 or 4 sessions restoring stability to the ankle because he was young and strong and healthy. That it fixed pretty quickly. And he could do 3-hour 3-man throws with no shoulder pain after that. I never touched his shoulder. So this is why it's key. That's why I wrote Pain Culprits, because we've got to find the culprit. We have to stop beating up the victim. Now, if I had performed conventional PT, I would have stretched his shoulder, maybe ultrasound, hot pack, ice pack, all the conventional stuff. It would have never fixed the problem because the culprit was his ankle. So it's very important for people to understand, if you go to see somebody and they see you as a body part, they're going to be kind of limited in how much they can help you, because they need to understand the connections and how everything is connected to everything else. So that's the FAFS. That's the, when you've taken that, that's kind of, I joke and say it's sort of like a PhD in human biomechanics, because it's a 40-hour course, 5 hours a week. So it's a big course, and it's very, there were times it made my head hurt to learn all this stuff. And then after that, the CMI, I'm a certified MELT instructor. MELT method is a beautiful self-care strategy. I've been teaching it since 2011. It fixed my own shoulder issue that I had. And I've seen so many people, especially people who have serious chronic pain issues, things that don't resolve any other way. It's a beautiful way for people to learn how to literally restore the alignment of their body in like 10 minutes. It's phenomenal. And you do use a very specially designed, very soft, very different design of a foam roller. It's not ironing your body like a shirt with that hard styrofoam stuff. You're doing things like direct and indirect shearing and friction and rinsing and decompression. I mean, there's a lot of very specialized techniques that you do. And I've taught that at the local college for many years, and I've had people start crying on the floor because if they did their assessment and they had pain, and then we did 10, 15 minutes of treatment techniques, and then they go back to do their assessment and they don't have pain, they start to cry because it's the first time they could lay on their back without pain. So this is big. This is a big deal,
Mm-hmm.
So that's what the CMI is. And then the NE, I'm a nutrition educator. When I when I was little, I wanted to be a doctor. Then when I got old enough to go to college, I didn't really agree with the medical model. I didn't really want to treat symptoms. I kind of wanted to work more in restoring people's lives and health. And I was very interested in nutrition, but I didn't agree with what they were teaching then either. They were doing the 4 food groups. And I know if you disagree with your professor, they're going to flunk you. So they had the PT program in the catalog, and that I've always been intrigued by the human body. So that's how I ended up going into PT. But fast forward about 15 years after I got licensed as a PT, Wellness Forum Institute started a nutrition educator diploma program that is not industry funded. So there's no bias, there's no conflict of interest. It is all data supported for what you're taught. And that was a 900-hour program. So, I learned a lot about how to address people's health with food, as well as other strategies. And so those are the most important letters, I think. I've taken, 30 plus years of coursework, so there could be a lot of letters there, but those are the ones that I think matter the most.
I think that that's so awesome because what you're doing is one, I think that we have to continue to learn. And I think that when we stop learning, like for me personally, I feel like we are dying inside, right? Like the human brain capacity can hold so much and we limit it, what it can do. And so I thank you for that because I'm also one of those people like I always want to learn. I want to learn what's next, what's new, what's the best thing that I can do for myself. And I also love that you are all about root cause. Like you don't want to put a band-aid on something. You want to get to the root cause. And I love the how you helped the football player who came in for a shoulder injury. However, you went and you noticed it was the way that their technique was. And, of a person who has been through chronic pain, myself personally, been through a lot of chronic pain, a lot of physical therapy. I just think about what you say, and it's like, how many times are they just fixing the neck? I'll go in for the neck, but it's really maybe it. What I've never really gotten treated for is the thoracic scoliosis that I have, which could also hinder the legs and the ankles. And I actually went to an orthopedic one time, and I said, "Hey, my knee's really bothering me," and he goes, I don't want to look at your knee. I want to address why your neck is so bad and go, oh, I've always had neck pain. He goes, no, your neck has significantly between the C4, C3 gotten significantly worse from 2008 to present. And he goes, and that's something we need to look at right away. And it was like, I went in for knee pain because the neck pain, I was so used to it. It didn't even matter. Like I thought that's just what I dealt with. It was the knee that had a little bit of an issue that scared me because I was like, I can't walk. But here I was dealing with this neck pain for a long time, and it was taking an orthopedic who took the time to go through every single X-ray I had ever had to look to understand who I was. And I was like, "You have really done your research." And it wasn't just like a quick, "Let's hurry up and get you a cortisone shot," or forget what it was that they could give me. They looked at my whole file, and I was like, "This is the kind of doctor you want. This is the kind of person you want on your team." I think that that's
Yes,
important.
yeah, somebody who's paying attention. Now, to take that a step further, would he think to look at lower spine because here's the rub. Doctors can only teach what they know or what they've been taught. And I'm not saying he would do this, so please don't hear what I'm not saying. But if he doesn't understand the connection between the rest of the body and neck function, he's going to only treat the neck. So again, your neck, and I'm certainly not diagnosing you or giving you a plan of care, but your neck might be the victim because we've gone so far as to take the human spine and break it up into cervical, thoracic, lumbar, sacral. Like none of those parts impact each other, and they all do. And I've restored people's neck pain by improving ankle function, by improving hip function, by improving thoracic spine function. So I remember working with a guy once who came in. He had 8 or 9 treatments of conventional PT. He had neck pain, and his therapist went on vacation, so he got on my schedule. And I'm looking through the notes, and I'm seeing that he hadn't reported any improvement in his symptoms. So I'm not going to keep doing what they're doing. It's not working. And so I asked him if he was okay with me looking elsewhere, and he was. He wanted to get fixed. And I couldn't really find anything. There was a little something going on in low back, but I then asked him, when do you get your pain? And he said, in the morning when I take walks, I get neck pain and headache by the end of my walk, but I love my walks. I don't want to give them up. I just want the pain to go away. So I said, well, have you ever sprained your ankles? And he said, constantly in college. When I checked his ankles, he had there's this motion called dorsiflexion. He had literally no dorsiflexion in one ankle, and he had minus like 5 degrees on the other ankle. So whenever he walked, there was no way he could do a healthy heel to toe gait. It just wasn't happening. And so this was creating this chain reaction right up into his neck. And so I mobilized his ankles, gave him a really specialized way to lengthen his calf muscles because they had shortened over the last 20 years or so. He never had to come back. His neck pain was gone. He could walk forever and never had neck pain. So again, his neck was the victim. Now, a lot of the times people will go in and they'll get imaging done because they have symptoms. Here's something that most people are completely unaware of. As I said, I love to teach things that aren't mainstream knowledge, but it should be. There is tons of data that shows that imaging and symptoms does not line up, which means there's a ton of people out there that things show up on a cervical x-ray or imaging, MRI, that they have bulging discs, but they have no symptoms. And then there's a lot of people who they don't have any bulging discs, but they have neck pain. And then there's people in between. They've got the disc and they've got the neck pain. Now, what that tells me is a lot of the times the pain may not be caused by what's showing up on imaging. Because if you can have that and not have pain, why do we automatically assume when we see that? Now, there are times, I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I mean, I can count on my fingers how many times I've recommended somebody to go to surgery. Unfortunately, a lot of the times I see people after surgery. I didn't get the chance to see them before surgery. But there are times, like if you're dropping things, if you've got some severe potential for nerve damage and there's weakness and whatever, then yeah, you want to run to a neurosurgeon. But if that's not the case, you want to look at the body and see what's going on. Because if you're not looking at the potential areas that will impact neck function, you might be beating up the victim. I mean, he could have gone and got imaging if nobody was able to discern that it was the ankle function, and he might have gotten an ultrasound, or he might have gotten an x-ray or an MRI, and they may have found something. So then he might have gotten injections, God forbid, surgery. But the problem wasn't his neck. So that's what people need to understand. We're a whole person. We're not just a bag of body parts. We don't take something off and put it on a shelf when we go to bed. Everything's connected. All those muscles are connected. So it's really important for people to know that and to be seen that way by somebody who understands that.
Is your business constantly busy, but still inefficient? If your team is working hard but things keep falling through the cracks, it's not a people problem, it's a process problem. This is where Refine Consulting comes in. I help businesses simplify operations and build systems that actually work. Here's how I do it, in just a few days. First, we get clarity. We identify where your time, energy, and money are being wasted. Then, we map your process, step by step, so you can actually see what's happening. Next, we simplify. We cut out delays, redundancies, and anything that's slowing you down. Then we build a system your team can follow, so everything doesn't depend on you. And finally, we implement, so you walk away with a clear plan and real results. No more guessing, no more chaos, just better systems. If you're ready to streamline your business and get your time back, go to refineconsultingllc.com and book your free discovery call. Let's refine your processes and help you shine.
So my thoughts, like I'm here thinking about my whole life, right? And everything that I've had pain on. And I have sprained my ankles. I actually sprained my ankle probably when I was in junior high. And so from what you're saying, I've never really, they sprained it, but they never I never got a cast on it or any of those things. Nobody's ever really followed up on x-rays of my ankle that I'm thinking of. And then I became a runner later on. I had to stop running hurdles and track because of the ankle sprain. And now I'm thinking about, then later I started running again. And all of this could be because I never really healed the ankle correctly.
Absolutely. I have seen so many teenage athletes who came in because of shoulder pain, they're a softball pitcher, or hip pain, and they're a soccer player, or knee pain, and they're a basketball player. And pretty much 99.99% of them had a history within the past year of an ankle sprain that they were cleared to go back to play because the pain was gone. And there was no swelling, there were no symptoms, but no one checked to be sure. And I go into detail in this in one of my YouTube videos. If people check out the plantar fasciitis playlist, you don't have to have plantar fasciitis, but I teach the exact details of gait. I show my little foot model, and I walk through what has to happen with the heel bone and the talus bone on top, and how that impacts all the way up to the neck and all the way back down from the time we land on our heel to the time we push off our toe. And so when people understand this, but I mean, I had parents who would bring their kids in and say, I told them they're not going back into the game until you assess them and make sure everything's okay before they start playing again. Because I worked with them in the past, and they saw that I found the cause. I didn't just treat the body part that was complaining. And that's pivotal.
Yeah, because like I'm thinking like even when I've ran like a couple of marathons, I like made sure that I the ones where I had the less pain, like I can see my finishing picture and I'm taped from my foot up to my leg and I had no pain in my neck. Where if I'm not taped up correctly, I get the pain right away in my neck. It's because I'm overcompensating in my foot that causes the whole body to go a certain way
Yeah.
while I'm running.
Yeah. That chain
Hmm.
reaction. Yep.
I've
Absolutely.
never had and I'm thinking about it now with all, I'm actually have been having excruciating neck pain. I have lower back pain too. And I'm thinking I need to get my ankles checked.
I cannot tell you. I clear ankle function on everybody that I consult with. And a lot of the times the ankles are not playing nice with the rest of the body. And I've seen people resolve pain. And I know this sounds kind of like voodoo-ish, but I've seen people resolve pain almost anywhere in their body by restoring ankle function. Now, sometimes there are other things that have to be done. There are other areas, because of the pain they've had. They sit on their power source, gluteus maximus, I call him Max. If you've been sitting on Max for 20 years, he's not going to work right, and he's your power source. Also, the front hips, they're going to shorten, they're going to lock short, and now when you go to stand up, those muscles are going to grab your low back, and you think you got a low back problem, but you don't. You got a sitting and a short hip flexor problem. So, there's a lot of other things to look at with most people, but I find so often that restoring that ankle function makes a huge difference in so many areas.
I think it's fascinating, and I love that you have a YouTube channel that has a bunch of this information on it. And so, would you mind sharing a little bit about your YouTube channel, how people can find it? I will make sure that it's also in the show notes.
Yeah, absolutely. They just can go to YouTube and type in my name, Eileen Kopsaftis. Yeah,
Okay,
which I know
perfect.
is 9 letters, 3 vowels, kind of throws people. But yeah, just type in my name and it'll bring up. I've got lots of playlists, and I do add videos regularly. So.
That's pretty awesome. And I just love that you're just like you are doing so much and like you're constantly educating yourself too. And so as you're going through, you're staying with the times. Whereas like when you go to a doctor, and I'm not putting doctors down. So if you're listening and you're a doctor, I'm not putting you down. But how often are you getting updated in your education? Because maybe something that was something like right now you can hear you go on the carnivore diet is more now popular as people are going through regular foods, eating whole foods now instead of all these processed foods, and where we were taught for so long that salt was bad for us, salt is actually okay for us, and all of these different things. But our doctors getting that up, constantly going and renewing their certifications, they're renewing, learning more about medication, learning more about how to treat people. I kind of find a lot of times that big pharma plays a role in that if we're treating people and they're not using medication, then we're not making money, right? And so kind of my thought on that as well. And I've had a
Well,
whole
the whole medical model is based on pharmaceutical. That's how it was established. Back in history, you did have other ways of people working with people for health. And what happened was the industry decided, based on pharmaceutical, and this is factual, that they did not want the schools that weren't teaching pharmaceutical application to be considered valid. So, they kind of were named quacks, anybody who works with herbal medicine or any of the other stuff, which when you look at history, they had a much better result. In history, when there were plagues and things going on, the people who used the herbs and the more natural things were saving lives. The pharmaceutical, or the conventional medical profession was using leeches and arsenic and they weren't saving lives. Let's put it that way. So there's a lot to be said for that. Now, when somebody becomes a doctor, they want to help people. Anybody who goes to school for 12 years is a good person. They want to help people.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
It's the medical model that lacks. And what I've seen in my profession and the circle I spend time in, a lot of medical doctors end up going more the natural route, more they get tired of putting people on a shoebox full of meds and not seeing people improve. You're managing disease processes, you're not reversing them.
Mm-hmm.
And what I tell people, the most important thing to look at when somebody's advising you or recommending something is how many people have they helped and how long have they been doing that? And that's really key. And to earn my nutrition educator diploma, I studied under doctors and healthcare professionals, experts who for more than 30, 40 years have been helping people to restore health. They haven't just managed the disease with medications. They've actually helped people to reverse disease and eliminate the need for the medications. And these were patients who were, they should have died in a year or two. We're talking advanced cardiovascular disease, things like that. I've seen many people, when they make the right changes, reverse type 2 diabetes and not need medication and have healthy, ALC. So it's, or A1C, sorry. So it's, there's so much that I've seen over this 30 plus years where people can get their life back. They can, but they have to know it's possible. When the mainstream narrative tells you that there's no other option, then you're kind of limited. You can't make an informed decision if you're not informed.
I wanted to talk about what you just talked about. Like diabetes type 2 has been like really high lately. Like you hear it every day, somebody else, or maybe it's just because of my age. Every day somebody's getting diagnosed, or they have high blood sugar, all of these things.
It's an epidemic.
Yeah. So what is the things, if you could, I mean, I know that you're not treating people, but what is like maybe some simple changes that people could make today? I know that like from what I'm researching, artificial, like the Coke Zero and all those things are bad. Just because it's sugar free doesn't mean that it's good for you. I know some of those things, but what is something else that they can do? Like is it changing our oils, like not having seed oils and just using like olive oil, avocado oil, things like that? What else could they do?
Well, I think probably to really help people the most, there's a book I can recommend. It was written by Dr. Neil Barnard. He's the founder of the Physician Committee for Responsible Medicine. And it's literally about reversing diabetes, reversing and preventing diabetes. And obviously type 1 is a whole different story. And there's a lot, that would be another 3-hour talk we could do.
Yeah.
But for type 2, he's done research. There's lots of clinical studies that talk about what's actually happening in the cell of the person who develops the type 2 diabetes. And the strategies to apply are really simple strategies, but they go against the mainstream narrative. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I'll just share them bluntly. And probably the most important thing to start with is the fact what they've seen is it's called intramyocellular fat. So it's fat that's actually in the cell that increases the person's risk of being insulin resistant. And so insulin, it kind of opens the door of the cell to allow the sugar to get out of the bloodstream. Well, if the cell won't receive the insulin, now you can't get the sugar out of the bloodstream. So it's to make it as simple as possible. Mm-hmm. And so what they found that what's happening is it's the amount of intramyocellular fat, and the diet changes to reverse that have to do with, and this goes against, even what came out with the new FDA guidelines for food, which is, I won't get off on a tangent that the FDA is biased and conflict interest mm-hmm. because their job is to protect the food industry. So we won't go there. But most people ignore the FDA guidelines anyway, which mm-hmm. is kind of a good thing. But here's the thing. Basic bottom line, and you'll see this in the book, plant foods. As many plant foods as possible, eliminating as much as possible saturated fats, animal foods. You don't necessarily have to be vegan. I'm not using the V word, but if you're consuming animal foods more than 2 or 3 times a week, you're increasing your risk of these issues. Mm-hmm. And so it's really about these changes that, again, is not popular mainstream information. everybody wants to glom on to the newest buzzword. Like right now it's peptides. Any place you go, everybody's talking about peptides. I was invited onto a podcast and they wanted to know how I used peptides to help people to age well and all that. And I'm thinking, that's the newest buzzword. 3 months from now, people will be on to another buzzword. And the more you know about peptides is not going to change your life one way or another. So, we get stuck on these little things. And we got to look at the big picture and not get stuck on these tiny little things that
Right.
don't really make a difference.
Yeah. I think that that's amazing. I thank you for that information because I think it's so helpful. And what I also want to tell people, you don't get all your advice on TikTok or Instagram. You just don't.
Yeah. Or magazines,
Right.
or, a lot of websites out there are not really accurate sources. A lot of the people, even best-selling books, and I know I've got a couple of them, but even best-selling books, the authors may not be practicing medicine, even though they're an MD. And so a lot of what they've written about might be theoretical. And when you look at the data that they're using to support it, it isn't always like coincide with what they're saying.
Yeah.
And of course people aren't, PhDs in biostatistics, so they have to kind of trust the expert. But again, how many people have they worked with and how many people have they helped?
Right, right. I think that's important. And so I wanted to know, like, we know that we can connect with you on your website, but how can else can people, I mean, not, I'm sorry, on your YouTube, but how can else can people connect with you and how can people work with you? Do you only have, have do you do things like on electronically, like Zoom and all those types of things to help people or just in office? Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, so when the world shut down, people started to learn how to use Zoom better. But I was using Zoom to work with people all over the world long before that happened. So it just became easier because people knew how to use it.
Yeah.
So I can walk people through a 3-plane functional movement assessment and figure out what parts aren't playing nice with other parts. Teach them movements to see how it affects those parts. And then if it does make a difference right there during that session, we know that's the best homework for them as a starting point. Point them to resources. I limit how many private consultations I do because there's only one of me and there's only so many hours in the day, which is
Right.
why I've got programs online that can teach people this stuff, and they're obviously more cost effective. The YouTube channel's free. I do online events that are free. I've done 38 of them in the last 5 years
Oh,
on
wow.
all different topics. So those are all free. I really want to get this information out there. And so, but I do have a website that could help people if they're not sure, because I've literally got 8 websites. 2 of them are for my books. So people are like, okay, where do I go? What do I do? And so if they go to the main website, which is havelifelongwellbeing.com, and I know it's kind of long, havelifelongwellbeing.com, there's a little 5-question quiz that they can answer, and then that will aim them to the resources, the courses, what's free, what's not free, but give them some general idea of where they might want to go next to address their concerns.
Oh, that's awesome. I think that everybody should do that. So I will definitely make sure that I have the links in the show notes. And even if you're listening, listeners, and you may not need it right now, but you may know somebody who needs this, and just save this because this is something that can help you. And you never know when you can use this. But it's going to be, I mean, a 5 simple question quiz that you can just take, and it's going to help guide you. Like, why would you not do it? I think it's so important.
Yeah. Yeah.
But as we wrap up, I would love to know, like, we've talked about so many great things, but what is one thing, a type of action, something that my listeners can do today in order to help them refine and shine?
So I think it would depend if there's somebody who's dealing with pain, chronic pain. I think the most important thing for them to know is I hear from people a lot of the times, oh, I've tried everything. Well, it's kind of impossible to try everything because there's countless options in our world. So my response to that is always, you really haven't. And it's not a matter of, playing whack-a-mole and trying to figure out where to go and who to listen to and all of that. It's really a matter of knowing that you are a whole person and finding someone who treats you as a whole person is key in helping you to find the cause, figure out where's the culprit, And then I've not ever seen anybody not get better. Now, how much they get better depends. Have they had 3 back surgeries? Have they had, what's their history? What kind of medical issues are they battling? But I've never seen anybody not get better by doing the right things the right way. They just have to work with somebody who has those options for them.
I think that that's awesome. I just want to say thank you because you like I personally like wanted to ask some questions for myself because I wanted to know about, like as I have the chronic pain, but you have provided me a wealth of knowledge and I just want to thank you because I know that there is listeners out there who are dealing with chronic pain, who are, maybe can't even get out of bed sometimes because the pain is so bad. And for them to like think about like listening to this podcast and like you have to look at the whole body as a whole. And like when you were talking, I was like thinking these things are injuries I've had 30 plus years ago and how that can make an impact on me today and affects the whole body. So thank you for that so much. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
And if I could add one other topic, because there might be people out there who think it's their age and they're supposed to hurt because they're older. That's a lie from the pit of hell. The human body is not designed on a cellular level to decline and create pain. And if whoever you're working with tells you, well, you are, and they name some magic age, well, you are 72, or what do you expect at your age? You need to find somebody else. Because I've worked with people in their 80s, their 90s. I've had people over 100 years old getting stronger doing squats and parallel bars. The human body has an amazing ability to improve when you do the right things the right way. And age is not the deterring factor.
I love that. Oh, thank you so much for everything you provided today.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Refine and Shine. We hope you find valuable insights and inspiration to fuel your journey of continuous improvement. Remember, the key to success lies in refining your processes and letting your inner brilliance shine. If you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. Your feedback is greatly appreciated and helps us reach more listeners like you who are eager to refine and shine in all areas of life. Stay connected with us on social media for updates and additional resources and behind-the-scenes content. We love hearing from our listeners, so feel free to reach out with any suggestions, questions, or success stories you'd like to share. As we wrap up, remember that the power to transform your life lies within you. Keep striving for growth, embracing change, and seeking opportunities to refine your skills. Together, let's continue to shine bright and make a positive impact in the world. Until next time, keep refining and keep shining.